The Grace 1 at anchor off Gibraltar. Its Panamanian registration changed, yet the Iranian flag still not in place. It's Thursday, the start of the 43rd and final day of its detention. But a major legal twist on shore in the Gibraltar Supreme Court had a judge seeming somewhat baffled, and the crew on board wondering if they'd ever get away. The Attorney General's legal team had a plan to release the supertanker, but only hours before that was supposed to happen, the US Department of Justice asked for the detention to be extended instead. The case was adjourned for 5 hours. A lawyer for 3 of the crew, including the captain, couldn't see any reason for the detention to continue.
We've taken advice from 2 QCs in London, a specialist on sanctions and a criminal specialist. And from what we could tell them, their advice was that there was no breach of sanction.
As confusion spread from the courtroom, Grace 1 remained at anchor just as she has been since July the 4th. 28 crew members on board. 4 of them, the captain and 3 officers, were released on bail. Their passports were handed back ahead of the US approach to the court. Later, the court was in session again. This time, the judge threw out the approach from the US Department of Justice and granted the Attorney General's request for Grace 1 to leave Gibraltar's waters. The government's chief minister says Iran had given a cast-iron guarantee that Grace 1 would not deliver its 2.1 million barrels of light crude oil to Syria. He hails the actions of Gibraltar as a triumph.
It may be one of the most successful sanctions busts in history, not just in the context of the Syria sanctions set by the European Union, because we've deprived the Assad regime of $140 million at today's value of crude oil.
And what would you say if all of that oil did end up in Syria after all?
Well, there's a commitment in writing to say that it won't, and it won't look good on the Islamic Republic of Iran if it said something in writing and then does the opposite.
And so what Iran had described as piracy, and Gibraltar, along with the UK, calls a major breach of EU sanctions on Syria, appears to be ending now. As Grace 1 prepares to leave Gibraltar's waters, all eyes are on the US now to see what, if anything, it can do to stop this Iranian voyage. Andrew Simmons, Al Jazeera, Gibraltar.